This recording is from the ACA World Convention that was held virtually in April of 2020. The WSO is grateful to all of those that provided service and that attended. ACA is an anonymous program. Please respect the anonymity of those that participated in the event. You can visit us online at adultchildren.org, where we have pages dedicated to newcomers and a free literature downloads page. Our service websites, acawso.org and acawsoec.org, have information about being of service, and literature and medallions are available for purchase, and the Seventh Tradition contributions can be made at shop.adultchildren.org. Please enjoy the following recording from the 2020 ABC, Global Connections Strengthen Our Recovery.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and a warm welcome to the global ACA community for the 5th Annual ACA World Convention, our first fully virtual convention. While this is a difficult time for us all, we see moments like this that bring us together, and for that, we are grateful for our ACA recovery. We are doing 13 meetings over 26 hours for this convention themed Global Connections Strengthen Our Recovery. My name is Sophie, and this meeting is being hosted by Alexia from Germany. Please remember our spiritual principle of anonymity, as this meeting/workshop is being broadcast around the world and will also be recorded and distributed later. Only the active speakers will be unmuted. Some meetings may ask for sharing or for volunteers. Please use the raise hand feature at that time to speak. You will be unmuted when it is your turn to speak, and also note we have turned off everyone's cameras for meeting safety. Please join me in opening our meeting with the Serenity Prayer. Your microphone will be unmuted so that you can see the prayer. You ready? God, grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the one I can, and the wisdom to know that one is me. We meet to share the experience we had as children growing up in an alcoholic or dysfunctional home. That experience infected us then, and it affects us today. By practicing the 12 steps, we focus on the solution, and by accepting a higher power of our understanding, we find freedom from the effects of alcoholism and other family dysfunction. We identify with the problem and learn to live in the solution one day at a time. I've asked Pat to read the problem, so over to you, Pat.
Thank you, Sophie. I'm Pat and I'm an adult child. The problem. Many of us found that we have several characteristics in common as a result of being brought up in an alcoholic or dysfunctional household. We had come to feel isolated and uneasy with other people, especially authority figures. To protect ourselves, we became people pleasers, even though we lost our own identity in the process. All the same, we would mistake any personal criticism as a threat. We either became alcoholics or practiced other addictive behavior ourselves, or married them, or both. Failing that, we found other compulsive personalities, such as a workaholic, to fulfill our sick need for abandonment. We lived life from the standpoint of victims. Having an overdeveloped sense of responsibility, we preferred to be concerned with others rather than ourselves. We got guilt feelings when we stood up for ourselves rather than giving in to others. Thus, we became reactors rather than actors, letting others take the initiative. We were dependent personalities, terrified of abandonment, willing to do almost anything to hold onto a relationship in order not to be abandoned emotionally. Yet we kept choosing insecure relationships because they matched our childhood relationship with alcoholic or dysfunctional parents. We lived life from these symptoms of the family disease of alcoholism or other dysfunction made us co-victims, those who take on the characteristics of the disease without necessarily ever taking a drink. We learned to keep our feelings down as children and kept them buried as adults. As a result of this conditioning, we confused love with pity, tending to love those we could rescue. Even more self-defeating, we became addicted to excitement in all our affairs, preferring constant upset to workable relationships. This is a description, not an indictment. Pass.
Thank you, Pat. And now I've asked Irma to read the solution.
I am Irma, adult child of alcoholic. The solution. The solution is to become your own loving parent. As ACA becomes a safe place for you, you will find freedom to express all the hurts and fears you have kept inside, and to free yourself from the shame and blame that are carryovers from the past. You will become an adult who is imprisoned no longer by childhood reactions. You will recover the child within you, learning to accept and love yourself. The healing begins when we risk moving out of isolation. Feelings and buried memories will return. By gradually releasing the burden of unexpressed grief, we slowly move out of the past. We learn to reparent ourselves with gentleness, humor, love, and respect. This process allows us to see our biological parents as the instruments of our existence. Our actual parent is a higher power, whom some of us choose to call God. Although we had alcoholic or dysfunctional parents, our higher power gave us the 12 steps of recovery. This is the this is the action and work that heals us. We use the steps, we use the meetings, we use the telephone. We share our experience, strength, and hope with each other. We'll learn to restructure our sick thinking one day at a time. When we release our parents from responsibility for our actions today, we become free to make helpful decisions as actors, not reactors. We progress from hurting to healing to helping. We awaken the sense of wholeness we never knew was possible. By attending these meetings on a regular basis, you will come to see parental alcoholism or family dysfunction for what it is, a disease that infected you as a child and continues to affect you as an adult. You will learn to keep the focus on yourself in the here and now. You will take responsibility for your own life and supply your own parenting. You will not do this alone. Look around you, and you will see others who know how you feel. We will love and encourage you no matter what. We ask you to accept us just as we accept you. This is a spiritual program based on action coming from love. We are sure that as the love grows inside you, you will see beautiful changes in all your relationships, especially with God, yourself, and your parents. Thank you.
Thank you, Irma. And I've asked Beryl to read the 12 steps.
Hi, thank you, Sophie. My name is Beryl. I'm an adult child. ACA 12 Steps 1. We admitted we were powerless over the effects of alcoholism or other family dysfunction, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand God. 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked God to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, we continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understand God, praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to others who still suffer and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Thank you.
Thank you, Beryl. You may have related to our readings, even if there was no apparent alcoholism or addiction in your home. This is common because dysfunction can occur in a family without the presence of addiction. We welcome you. What you hear at this meeting should remain at this meeting. We do not talk about another person's story or experiences to other people. Please respect the anonymity of those who share with us today. ACA meetings have one primary purpose: to carry the message to adult children who still suffer. This group believes that allowing predatory behaviour to occur in and around meetings creates a distraction from this purpose. Please see the adultchildren.org free literature page for the ACA commitment to addressing predatory behaviour tent card. And now it is time to hear from our first speaker. So I'll now be handing over to Pat, who'll be sharing his experience of strength, hope and recovery.
Thank you, Sophie, and thanks everybody else. Actually, I have to say, thanks to all those who have arranged this business conference and this convention. I'm blown away by that organization, and what I've heard over the last 3 days convinces me that, you know, that there is something about this fellowship, you know, able to show ourselves warts and all, that is really quite inspiring, and it's not something that I see in most places. In fact, I don't think I see it really anywhere else. You know, this ability to accept our warts for what they are, and say they're part of me, and that's it. I'm just so grateful to all of you, and for the fact that I got into ACA, but I'll come to that in a second. The recovery process is what I've called this, and of course this recovery process is my recovery process, and all recovery processes are different. But for me, I came in through AA. After about 5 years in AA, I got into ACA, and I attend regular meetings of SLA as well, because I have issues there. My early experiences in AA, and I have to say I owe my life to AA, but my early experiences in AA did not encourage me to ask the question, why am I an alcoholic? Why am I a sick person? And our iconic figure in Salisbury in those days, Sim, the way he discouraged it was by saying, what makes me an alcoholic? Alcohol makes me an alcoholic. Simple as that. Now get on with the 12 steps and get on your knees and pray. And it's a valid approach, and I don't criticize that, but I don't feel that it was enough for me. In relatively early recovery, I discovered something I'd known all my life, but didn't really have a word for it, and that was shame. I knew that there was stuff I wanted to get out, but I couldn't talk about it. And I finally spoke to my sponsor at the time about it, and he gave me Bradshaw's book that everybody knows, and I bought other books on shame because I saw what a core issue it was for me. You know, what are the things that produce shame in me? Well, it all happened in my family, of course. But the first one was sex. And I feel that I have had shame around sex probably even before I was conceived, because it is so endemic in my historical family. No one talked about sex, you know, although everyone was interested in it, no one dared raise the subject of it. If in our family anything of a salacious nature came onto television, my mother would change the channel. And we didn't say, why are you changing the channel? Because we knew why she was changing the channel, and we didn't dare say anything. Now, I have that reaction has been with me all my life, through my 40-year marriage. You know, it's being addressed in one of the fellowships I've mentioned, and there's no doubt about it that that is of help to me. And you know, although I personally see ACA as the universal fellowship, the fellowship, you know, sort of like a universal donor in blood, I suppose, or something like that. But anyone who belongs or qualifies for any 12-step program, it seems to me, almost certainly qualifies for ACA. They all learnt their issue in childhood. Well, I could be wrong, but that's the way it seems to me. So sex was certainly a major cause of shame for me, but then also such things as failure or success. If I didn't succeed, there was ridicule or derision, and that created shame as well. Anything that could be seen as weakness or neediness was again shameful. And of course it goes into things like masculinity. You know, what's it like to be a boy? You know, well, there are so many rules about what boys should and shouldn't do that if I fell short in any of those areas, well, it was shame. And of course, the other thing about shame, it sort of goes hand in hand with abandonment. I can't think of an instance where I have felt abandoned without feeling shame, and I can't think of an instance of shame which is not somehow involved with abandonment also. So the consequence of shame is that I pretended that I wasn't the things that I was ashamed of. I created a system of masks that I would put on to show my parents and other people that I was not what I thought they thought I might be. And you know, those masks accumulated. There was a mask for every way in which I felt ashamed. And shame has been, or you know, shame has been at the core of my my being for so long that, and I recognize what these masks are doing. I saw a few years ago at a car boot sale a little nest of masks, this little thing here, this little nest of masks. And you know, this is sort of a metaphor for my life in a way, because that's what I'm putting over here. But if I take that off, there's just another one underneath it. And if I take that one off, well, there's another one underneath that one. And you can go on and on and on here. And ultimately, of course, what you find at the end is a little thing there, which I sort of see appropriately as my inner child. There's my little inner child who has been protected by all these masks that I have put on to convince people that I'm not what I'm afraid they think I might be. So that's and of course, the solution to the problem of shame is talking about it. Now, I have been talking about shame for a long time. I was talking about shame in AA before I got into ACA, and I had been in AA 5 years. We're going over 20 years ago. You see, I even got into recovery, you know, in the second half century of my life. You know, the wrong side of 50, I got into recovery. And the interesting thing is, I was sort of pushed into recovery. I didn't get into recovery because I thought I might need it. I got into recovery in AA because my wife told me I was an alcoholic. Not because I thought that I needed AA. I didn't even think I was an alcoholic when I went to my first meeting of AA. But I discovered that I was an alcoholic while I was at the meetings of AA, because I simply identified so much with what the people were saying. But they were talking about things that I didn't think it was safe to talk about. And I remember at my first AA meeting, pushing myself back into my chair, saying, you know, don't say things like that. It's you know, people will crucify you for doing that. And I saw that people were not being crucified for the honesty that they were displaying. And that was when it struck me, hey, I could do with a bit of this. And I, you know, having originally conceded I might go to an AA meeting a week, and I went to 3-4 AA meetings a week, simply because of what I saw was happening there. And, you know, I don't think it was an addiction to AA, but it was certainly a desire for that environment where people were being honest with themselves, because I had never been in an environment in my life before where you could be honest in that way. So the solution to shame is talking about it, and you have to have a safe place in order to talk about it. And that was originally in AA, but not all that many people in AA identified with shame. Whenever I talk at an AA meeting, I talk about shame, and someone said, no, I don't have any of that. And yet when I got into ACA, and I have to say I stumbled into ACA as well. I didn't go there because I felt a need to, you know, because my little child was hurting or anything like that. Someone started a meeting here in Salisbury, and I went to that. And it was okay. You know, there were no blinding flashes of light or anything like that. But I stayed, and people were talking about shame. And that was a subject that was close to my heart because I knew I had it. And that may have been the single reason that I stayed going to ACA. And I really didn't know what I had in my hands in the early years in ACA. I've discovered that, you know, subsequently, and that really, that is where my recovery now happens. My recovery happens in 90% in ACA. But I see recovery. I see recovery as a series of insights that I get from our literature, from meetings, you know, things, little eureka moments where you think, God, yeah, that's true. That really is true. I think one of the first ones came for me in AA, in that thing in the, I think it's in the 12 and 12, where they say, it is a spiritual axiom that whenever we're disturbed, no matter what the cause, there's something wrong with us. I wasn't impressed with that when I first heard it, because it was quite clear to me that when there was something, when I was disturbed, it was because you had bloody well upset me, not because I had done anything wrong or that there was anything wrong with me. But it, you know, over time I realized, actually, you know, who's disturbed? It's me. By definition, that means there's something wrong with me. And that's a little insight. It's a little eureka moment. There is something wrong with me if I am disturbed. I heard at an AA meeting, a woman said, "You're as sick as your secrets." And that was a bullseye as far as I was concerned. I knew as soon as I heard her say that, God, that applies to me. That really, it's almost essence of shame in a way, but it was phrased in that way. You're as sick as your secrets, and that was another insight that has been at the heart of my recovery process. Other things like hurting people hurt people. I read that in a book from some author that I admire. And he says, you know, when you're feeling bad, when you're feeling in pain, and you're reacting with someone else, just look at the dynamic. I know that when I'm in that position, I'm saying something that I can excuse by saying this person needs to know this about themselves, because, you know, how can they recover if they don't know what's wrong with them? And I am in this wonderful position of being able to tell them what's wrong with them. And you know, when I look at that in detail, I can see I'm not trying to help them really. I'm trying to stop feeling in pain myself. If I can pass the pain to somebody else, it seems that I don't feel like I'm in quite such pain myself. I learned this idea of boundaries, and that's an insight as well. We didn't have boundaries in my family of origin. If you saw a chink in someone's armor in my family of origin, you were duty bound to poke at it and try and, I suppose to try and expose the person for being flawed. Another wonderful insight that my first sponsor gave me, because it's about feelings. And he said that there are no invalid feelings. That was really new stuff to me, because I had been told that my feelings were wrong. That there was, you know, that I was defective for having this feeling. And it wasn't as if my parents said to me, don't have feelings. They didn't do that. It was really much more that whatever feeling I happened to display, well, that was the one that I wasn't supposed to have. And so I soon learned that having feelings wasn't really okay. Yeah, that was really quite an important one. That's that word important, which I was talking to Frederick about earlier on. This word important, it seems to have an almost intrinsic meaning. And you know, there are various things that I think are terribly important. Who wins this football match? Who does this? Who, you know, it's important. And you know, really, I'm discovering that there isn't anything, not anything, that is actually intrinsically important. You know, coronavirus, okay, we all think it's important, and it's certainly going to have consequences if we don't do certain things. But whether that makes it intrinsically important is another matter. It's you know, not overstating the case to say that if the solar system disappeared, the Milky Way wouldn't notice, much less the galaxy. So all the things that are happening within this solar system, or within this one planet in the solar system, to say that things like that are important, well, okay. Ultimately, when I'm saying something's important, what I really mean is that according to my agenda, I want that to happen. That's what I mean by important. Things can have relative importance, things can be important for a particular outcome, but the word itself has no intrinsic meaning. It's a bit like the word freedom. You can have a bit more or less of it. Things can be a bit more or less important, but it doesn't have any intrinsic meaning. And that is important to me only because it leads to one of two directions. I can either become a nihilist and say, well, what the hell? I mean, nothing's important. Why should I bother with anything? Or I can say, Since nothing is important, the world is my oyster. I can do what I like, and I can create happiness. I can create all sorts of opportunities, because it doesn't matter if I make a mistake. It isn't important. So that's that. Now, how long have I got? Anyone tell me how long I've got? I've got several things I want to say here. How long is that? Oh, you can't say so, can you? Put up your fingers.
Hi, Pat. You've got about 5 minutes left.
5 minutes. Okay, all right. Well, central to the recovery process is the issue of pain. And for my purposes, I see pain as coming in two types. There is valid pain, and there is unnecessary pain. I think M. Scott Peck said in one of his books, all mental disorder is as a result of trying to avoid valid pain. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but when I read that, I thought, that's why I'm drinking. That's why I'm doing that. I'm trying to avoid valid pain. That's what alcohol did for me. It made me avoid pain. So, you know, that's an important aspect of recovery, realizing that, you know, pain, valid pain, is something I have to face. I have to grieve. I have to process valid pain. But the thing is that most of the pain that that is inflicted upon me is unnecessary pain. You know, I think it's valid to say, you know, that dysfunction is the creation of unnecessary pain. If the actions that you think are dysfunctional, or someone thinks is dysfunctional in me, do not create any pain for me or for you or for anybody else, I think there's at least a valid case for saying that it's not dysfunctional. And so, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I spend my time now trying not to create any unnecessary pain. In my, I have a litany of prayers that is specific to me, and they're all in one way or another to do with pain. The 8th prayer in that says, God, please help me to become more aware of my anxieties and neuroses, my jealousies and fears, and of the unnecessary pain that they cause, and of the part that awareness itself can play in alleviating that pain. And all of these things, my neuroses, my jealousies, my fears, they're all unnecessary. They're creating pain, but they are unnecessary. And that's, again, another insight that I need to be aware of. Lots of things here. I mean, the value that I get out of ACA. You know, you've all heard Philip Larkin's poem, This Be the Verse, they fuck you up, your mum and dad, they may not mean to, but they do. They give you all the faults they have and add some extras just for you. Written in 1971, before ACA, but it could be the ACA a mission statement. It's the generational nature of it. Second verse goes, but they were fucked up in their turn by fools in old time hats and coats, who half the time were soppy stern and half at one another's throats. So that you know, this is that poem is the mission statement for ACA, and our literature, which is sublime literature. I heard Charlie saying yesterday that there were defects in our literature. I haven't seen any, I have to say, but that literature is sublime, and you know, if people can improve that literature, that's fine. I know that the AA Big Book by Bill W. was inspired because it's not reasonable to expect anyone who's 3 years sober to have the insights that he had that produced the Big Book. And this literature that we have in ACA is sublime, but there are parts of it that are so valuable for me, because when it talks about the roles of children that come from dysfunctional families, the hero, the mascot, the lost child, the black sheep, whatever they are, when I read those to my children, they self-identified with the roles that they were playing. And I was able to say to them, this means you come from a dysfunctional family. And that's not just an interesting observation. The point is that there is going to be pain. If you come from a dysfunctional family, there will be pain. And this is something that my children and I can talk about now. And I am amazed myself. I had two of my daughters studied psychology and sociology, and you know, where they are heading in. Just finish off on this then, Sophie, thank you very much. And where they're going, or you know, where they're aiming with these subjects that they teach now, is indistinguishable from where we are trying to head in recovery. We're trying to head for some kind of wholeness. We're trying to head from as few anomalies as we can. And I've got about halfway through this now, so okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you for your share. We will now hear from Beryl, who's bringing us a workshop on reclaiming and restaging, filling in the gaps.
Sophia, could so many people have asked about what the name of the poem and author are again. So, okay, if Pat just could.
What's the name of the poet, Pat? The poet.
Philip Larkin, and the poem is called "This Be the Verse."
Thank you, Pat. Okay, now over to Beryl, who is going to start our workshop. Thanks, Beryl.
I can't unmute.
You're unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, okay, thanks very much for your share, Pat. My name's Beryl, I'm an adult child. And I'm going to be speaking about reclaiming and restaging, filling in the gaps. And when I was a bit rushed to do this, I've been thinking about doing this for absolutely ages, and I didn't think I'd be here a month ago. And I didn't know what everyone else would be sharing on. So I thought reclaiming and restaging, I don't know if I got that somewhere in the Red Book or where I got it from. And then I thought filling in the gaps, but I thought filling in the gaps doesn't do this process justice. And I came across something online which said repairing the holes, filling in the gaps, unraveling the knots, and unbending what isn't true. So I'm going to speak about the first 3 stages of childhood development. There are, on the model that I'm using, 7 stages. And if all those stages were met, I would have become an adult who was whole, who was, you know, sort of able to have this inner compass would be set to, like, feeling secure, being able to set boundaries, instead of what I learned in a dysfunctional, addicted background. So basically, the needs of each stage in an alcoholic, either dysfunctional family, if not all stages are successfully completed, they leave a wounded part or an inner child figure that's trapped in the past. And then, so basically, I have to go back. I know what that stage needed. If it's the infant stage, I know what that child needed, and I know what she got, and I have to feel the pain, the loss, do the grieving, and maybe learn new behaviors, and in order to integrate these parts that are running as independent operating systems and get triggered and go straight back into that part. So I'll also be looking at how these unmet needs may play out in childhood, and basically looking at some tools. I won't have enough time to go deeply into it, but just sort of very superficially, tools that can assist in the repair work, which is moving from fragmentation to wholeness. And in the ACA Red Book, it says, Big Red Book, it says on page 354, in ACA, we believe we were born whole and became fragmented in body, mind, and spirit. So basically, you had, but I'm looking at the age, I'm identifying the infant self as the self that was from birth to 18 months. Now, there is a lot of research out there that proves that when you're in utero, you know, you start bonding with the mother, and a lot of stuff goes in there, oxytocin levels increasing in the mother, in the baby, and also in the father. But I won't have enough time to talk about that. So at this stage, it's all about developing trust. And it's about, first of all, bonding with your mother, your primary caregiver, physically and emotionally. And it's learning to get your needs met. And you have this ability to scream and cry. And so all of these things we are supposed to be learning at this stage. So basically, sorry, I've got my slides in the background, yeah. Okay, so basically the level of safety, trust, and nurturing that I experienced in my current relationships is pretty much indicative for myself of the level of nurturing, safety, and trust I experienced as an infant. So I had physical needs and I had emotional needs, but I needed both the physical and emotional needs to be met in order to learn to feel safe with my primary caregiver. And if I didn't feel safe, I couldn't bond with my primary caregiver. And if I didn't bond with my primary caregiver, I didn't learn trust. So, so basically the physical needs might be like if I was an infant and my nappy or my diaper weren't changed when necessary, if I needed to be bathed and I wasn't bathed regularly, or if my nutritional needs weren't met well enough, and those were sort of the physical needs, but I needed the emotional needs to be met as well. And that is if I wasn't soothed or held in a loving manner, but rather left unattended, if I was, you know, cried for help or whatever, not for help, sorry, if I cried for long periods of time, and I wasn't, if those cries weren't responded to kind of immediately, then I wouldn't have been able to feel safe with my primary caregiver, and therefore I would not have been able to bond with my primary caregiver, and therefore I would not develop trust. So I needed a predictable and consistent care to develop this secure base, and this relationship is the prototype for all my future relationships. I didn't know that. You know, I thought everything was my dad's fault. I've learned in ACA that my mother was probably the internal addict and my father was both, you know, acting out with all these different addictions, and there were loads of them. And so they weren't there for me emotionally. They couldn't, because they were so focused on trying to get their emotional needs met. So if those needs for safety and bonding and trust weren't met, then I wouldn't have been able to progress into the next stage of development, which requires me to be able to separate from my primary giver, and I wouldn't been able to learn autonomy, because basically there was no one there for me to attach to in the first place. So there was no one there for me to separate or become independent from. And then, you know, even though it was pre-verbal, I would still have this distorted belief, this helpless little child that desperately needed these grown-ups to depend on. I was totally dependent. I've developed this distorted belief, there must be something wrong with me. I must be unlovable. And so subsequently, I developed feelings of unworthiness, of shame, and those feelings were covering up my fear of abandonment. So the potential issues that can develop from not having these needs met as an adult is that I feared intimacy, because I really thought I was going to be abandoned. I didn't take care of my physical needs. I had an inability to trust in even situations that were trustworthy. I may have warded off potential relationships because I was so clingy. I wanted you or you to be my mommy or my daddy, and demanding that people meet all my needs. Or I became, for myself, I think I became a relationship anorectic, you know. I feared being abandoned. I feared being engulfed. And also this need for continued putting something in my mouth. I need to be gratified. I need to eat. I need to smoke. I need to use. I need to drink, drug, whatever my choice of addiction is. And, you know, I might swap addictions as well, which I've experienced. So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask everyone to do a little bit experiential exercise. If you can put your hand on your ribs at the side, yeah, and if you put your other hand on your abdomen, and just to slow down and breathe, inhale, and feel your abdomen and those ribs, intercostal muscles, feel them all, feel your hands lifting up, rising as you inhale. I want you to just exhale and then breathe in again and exhale. And I want you to imagine a safe place. Now, if you can't think of a safe place, you can visualize something. It can be on the beach, it can be in the mountains, it can be in a castle, wherever, you know. You can ask your infant self where you feel safe. And you can take your higher power or an angel or whatever your higher power is and your loving parent with you into that safe place. And I want you just to get a sense of what that infant might want you to do. Does he want you, or does he want you to cuddle them or just to leave them be? Just get a sense. And I want you to look at that child, tell the child, you know, I'm your future. I'm proof that we've grown up. And I promise you, I'm going to take care of all your needs. And then what I want you to do is, you can come up with your own affirmations, or you can say these affirmations. You belong here. You are lovable. You are welcome in the world. You can grow at your own pace. I want you to be here, and I want to take care of you. And you can feel all your feelings. And I just want you to, if you want to, take a few deep breaths. Just tell the child you're always going to be there and you'll always come back. Safe with the higher power. Just open your eyes and come back into the room. Okay, so the next stage is we're going to look at the toddler stage, and that kind of is the 18 months to 3 years. And so basically, at this age, it's all about developing a sense of self, of control, independence, autonomy. It's about learning to establish and maintain boundaries. It's about learning to hear no for our own, you know, protection. And it's about learning to hear clear limits as well. It's about learning to push against boundaries. And it's about being able to separate from our parents or primary caregiver with the reassurance that we're not going to lose their love. And it's about learning how to express our anger and our feelings with the support from our parents. And this is apparently a very exhausting period for parents, but it's a very, very necessary one for children to progress and be able to set the boundaries when we grow older. So during early childhood, we needed to develop the sense of personal control. to develop an identity, one which is worthy of respect and consideration. Boundaries are very difficult to create if you do not have permission to be independent or the freedom to say no or to test those boundaries. So as a toddler, I now had the ability to, I was mobile now, I could walk away from my parents and say no and refuse and stamp my feet. And I needed my parents to let me test the boundaries and let me do that stuff so I could learn. So I needed to be dependent and independent. So this is a natural progression, and I really needed to be supported in that process. I needed to learn I could choose between being compliant or defiant. I needed to be encouraged to flip between dependence and independence. So for example, if I was a toddler and I mostly, I ate all my food and I mostly managed not to spill it all over myself, my parents could go, Beryl, well done, we're so proud of you, and really praise me. But at the same time, if I pushed that food away and refused to eat, they needed to understand me and understand that that's a natural progress in the stage. And they also needed to teach me that I needed to hear no, so and to define clear limits. So, for example, if I was going to stick my hand under a hot tap running in the bathroom, they would help me to see, no, Beryl, that is not going to be very, you're going to hurt yourself. Or I needed to learn how to play with other children without playing rough, without harming them or myself. And this was about learning to identify between good and bad behavior. So basically, and I needed to learn to separate right from wrong. So for me, I think my boundaries were violated as a child continually, because when I grew up, I was full of self-doubt. I couldn't decide if it was my stuff or they were like crossing my boundary, or my boundaries would be completely, completely blurred. My boundaries were completely blurred, or they would be completely rigid. So if as a child I was, ridiculed, judged or punished when I tried to set boundaries, normal process. And if the other thing was this idea of being enmeshed. I don't know where your boundaries stop and my start. And that was my experience with my mother. I became parentified. So, if I tried to assert my independence in that situation, or my mother became very sad or very upset each time I tried to say no or whatever, I would learn to kind of suppress my feelings and my needs to be an individual, because I would think that my mother's emotional well-being depended on me, and I was responsible to keep happy. And I really did think that as a child, between the age of 3 and 6, I did that. And so I developed this sense of being over-responsible for the feelings of others. Oh my God, have I upset you there? Oh my God, I'm so sorry. If I try to set a boundary, I'd be thinking, oh Jesus, I've really hurt that person. And also then again, learning to say no when it's for my safety and protection. So it's all about being able to test the waters and see how far I can wander away from my parents, and know that when I could do that, and know that when I came back, they would still be there for me, still support me and still love me. And so, potential issues from this stage are, I couldn't say no to people because I was afraid that I would get rejected. I had a situation with a boss where, we were only supposed to work 2 hours a week, and I'd done all the work, and it was loads of work, and I'd prepared it, emailed it, and I put it, the physical copies in the pigeonhole at work. And she came to me and they tried to say to me that there was something wrong with the computer and they didn't receive my email. So I said, but I've got the emails, I can send them again, and didn't want to hear that. And then saw the other boss, and I tried to explain, look, I've already done the work and it was in the pigeonhole. And she said to me, basically, shut up, sit down, Beryl, shut up and do what you get paid to do. And there was another guy sitting there, and it felt like he was also sitting there, like frightened, and my counselor said, Beryl, you could stand up for yourself. It was always a case of I might get fired. And there was too much going on with me. And I realized that I really needed a sponsor who knew this stuff to help me with this stuff. I needed that support. Definitely needed a sponsor, not a sponsor who's going to, you know, scream and shout at me and tell me what I could and couldn't do, but I needed a sponsor to help me with this stuff. So the other thing I felt was, and I felt there was so much stuff going on in ACA that I felt it was too much for me to deal with. The other thing I used to feel, if someone tried to get close to me, I'd feel so engulfed and so smothered. And like I said, feeling over-responsible for other people's boundaries. So another example, I don't want to stay here too long because I've got 35 minutes, is that, you know, when I was in London, when I was 21, I was there with my cousin, and she'd taken something of mine without asking. And I tried to say to her, you know, look, I feel a bit up. It was something that I never used, and I don't have to justify it. And basically, she kind of really so basically like really abandoned me, shamed me, kind of trying to say, you know, you're overreacting. And I went into that self-doubt and the feelings of shame. And I know now that nobody can make me feel ashamed. That shame comes from these early stages, you know, infancy, feeling unworthy, and it comes from the fear of being abandoned. It comes from those early stages. And so if I would, as a healthy person, have said to, excuse me, though I wouldn't have felt any shame, I would have felt quite confident, and I would be able to stand up for myself. So basically what that means is I've got to go back to the stage, the toddler stage, know what I needed, and I've got to go back and do the repair work with that child. So this helps me identify what I needed, and then I can say, well, this is what I got, this is what I needed, and then I can see where I need to grieve all those losses of being a child, of developing all the stuff which I never got the opportunity to. So I can go back there and I can go and do the repair work with the child and feel the pain, feel the grief, let her grieve, and then I can learn new behaviors, which is coming out of the laundry list and going into the flip side of the laundry list, or coming out of the other laundry list and going into the flip side of that. So the other thing is, I feel like if someone is angry, I did something to make them feel like that. And the other thing is that I can have problems with boundaries in a different way. So for example, I could ask someone to do something for me, and they say no, and I feel resentful, and I'll never ask them again. So basically that's kind of some of the things. So I think 36, 24. Okay, I've still got time left. So what we can do is we can go now, if you feel comfortable, just put your hand on your ribs on the side and your abdomen, and just take a few deep breaths. Really just few deep breaths. Now I want you to go back to that safe place that you established. I want you to imagine your toddler self there. Reassure this part that you've grown up. You know, mommy and daddy aren't coming back, but I'm going to look after you. I love you. I'm going to help you process your pain. Grieve because you didn't get what you needed. And I'm going to try and give you back that stuff, by repairing and reparenting you. So some of the affirmations you can say or come up with your own is, I like you when you run about and you're boisterous and you knock things over. And I like you when you are quiet. You can do things as many times as you need to. You can be adventurous and explore the world around you and try out new things, and we will support and protect you. You can say no and push the limits as much as you need to, and I will keep you and others safe as you do so. It's okay for you to feel angry. I won't let you hurt yourself or others. You can be little Beryl, and I will still care for you. So just reassure the child that, you know, that the higher power is there and they can do what they want, and you'll be there whenever they need you. You'll try your best to be there whenever they need you. I just want to take another breath and open your eyes and come back into the room. Okay, so I'm looking at my time here, 23. I've still got 12 minutes. Well, okay, so the next stage is the young inner child. And this is the stage, the ages between 3 and 6. So again, this stage is learning, you know, learning where you fit in the world, learning how you, learning how to practice a socially appropriate behavior. You learn to respect the qualities in yourself that are positive and ones that are maybe not so positive. And you learn to respect those in yourself and in others. So you're learning about, you know, social skills as well. And you carving out an identity for yourself, which is separate from others. It's all about how I relate to the world. And it's about acquiring. Child at this age is very curious. Information about the world, about yourself, about your body, and about gender role. So basically, this stage is probably the most critical stage, growth period of all the developmental stages, because it's around 3 that we begin to care enough about others to worry or be concerned about what they feel about us. And if the people that I most cared about didn't accept me, little Beryl, for everything about her, all parts of me, then I would learn to disown those parts they didn't like. Because as that little 3-year-old, I was too young to run the risk of losing their love by being true to myself. There's the false self developing. So it's probably, you know, at this dynamic followed me into my adult life and became for me one of the greatest factors in my people pleasing and my codependent behavior. So it's here that the basis for self-worth was laid. And if I was constantly told, Beryl, you are bad, you'll never amount to nothing, or whatever negative belittling messages, I would have internalized those messages. And it's insufferable damage was done to my self-worth. And that would form the core of my shame as well, you know. And I grew up being too afraid to make mistakes and having to be perfect. That's where I learned this, in this developmental stage. And making mistakes would only confirm that I was crap, you know what I mean? That I wasn't enough, that I wasn't worthy of love. And then again, this shame in response to fearing that I would be abandoned because Beryl was unlovable. And, you know, I was in recovery. I came from another fellowship, came into ACA, and I did something that I felt in recovery was not the right thing to do. And I persecuted myself for 10 years. Woke up every morning, wow, beating myself up. And I heard in ACA, it's okay to make mistakes, learn. And I thought, no. And I thought that was the solution. Beat yourself up, Beryl, beat the crap out of you. And now I know that it's okay to be gentle with myself and with others and not judge other people harshly or myself, you know, because that stuff comes from, you know, from one of these unmet needs. So if I was told, though, that I was good, and sometimes I did naughty or silly things, I don't like to use the word bad, then that would have kind of given me a really good, solid foundation to build self-worth on. At this stage of my development, I knew exactly what I wanted and I knew how to get it. But if I had parents that shamed me, belittled me, humiliated me, got angry with me when I tried to assert myself, that also really would be damaging to my self-worth. And you know, those negative messages playing on autopilot as well as the scenes. So for example, if I've got a job in a task in the house and the duty is like, Beryl, you take out the garbage, right? And like I've not taken the garbage out for like a few days and it's starting to smell. And like my partner said, Beryl, it's, you're going to take it out kind of thing. And I go into a rage. And, he's just like an innocent bystander. I need to go back to this age and I need to deal with that little child that was belittled or humiliated by a father. And so I learned in ACA as well, the more that I act out my rage, and I've been guilty of acting out, believe me, the less inclined I'm going to be to able to grieve those losses. If I keep displacing it onto other people, or if I just kind of turn it onto myself, I need to have someone there, I think a sponsor, who can help me identify and show me what process I need to go to repair that little girl who still thinks she's stuck in the past. So the other thing is that if I was ashamed for something that wasn't an age-appropriate task, that I couldn't complete that task, and then I was expected to do that, and I couldn't do that, and then the parents got pissed off with me because you were supposed to you can't do this. That's damaging to my self-worth. And I grew up then with feeling responsible for things I had no control over. At that age, I believe I became very aware of the family's pain and trying to fix it by taking on this role. There's roles to balance out the family dysfunction, which all the children take on. And but I had no control over that stuff. And again, developing this overdeveloped self that wants to look after mommy's feelings and make sure mommy's happy, and then those of my siblings, which is exactly what I did. So again, this feeling of feeling responsible for things that are way beyond my control. And the other thing, which is sad, is that I would not have been able to develop focused on the age-appropriate task that I was supposed to be learning and completing, and that is curiosity. Children are very curious at this stage, and they ask loads of questions. But the child's curiosity extends to their bodies, and they become very curious about their private parts and about other children's private parts. Now, the way the parent responds to this very natural process can either encourage the children to develop a very healthy relationship with their bodies, or if they're shamed, teased, laughed at, then they can develop a sense of shame and guilt. So again, once for something that is an age-appropriate act of physical discovery. So basically, the way these things might play out in our lives is feeling of being over-responsible, being a perfectionistic, fear of making mistakes, no tolerance for another person's behavior, people-pleasing, feelings of shame, need for perfection, need to ward off shame. Don't want to feel my shame. I have to feel to heal. I have to take that child and be there with her, support her, and say, it's okay. The feelings aren't going to kill you. It's okay. And another thing, this inability to succeed. And shame rooted in a lack of self-worth and poor body image. Feeling awkward about my body, which has certainly developed, absolutely. Being very critical of myself, full of shame, and critical of others. The other thing is I can use sex as a way to feel close. And other things I can do, this criticism of self, is I focus so much on things I don't like about myself. But do one thing wrong, that's all I can focus on. It comes from this 3 to 6 years developmental stage. And the other thing I did brilliantly was I spent a lot of time being very overly concerned, just really panic stations about other people, what other people think of me or thought of me. And the other thing again is that internal dialogue, which is made of all these deprecating messages to self. Or I can feel very judgmental of others. Okay. And I have a hard time accepting the imperfections of others, or I immediately assume responsibility for something that I'm not responsible for. That idea of that talks about in the Red Book, I feel guilty when I've been burglarized. Who else could feel guilty about being burglarized except an adult child? You know, again, this black and white, all or nothing thinking. If a friend says to me, look, I'm so sorry, I'm going to be late, and I just think, I'm never, ever going to make any plans with you again. That kind of thing. Right. So again, body image and sexuality. When I look in the mirror, all I see is what's wrong with my body. And I know that I did this. I wore baggy clothing. You know, I was born in South Africa, and in the heat at school, I would wear my blazers and my jumper in the absolute scorching sun sometimes. And also thinking masturbation is sick and dirty. I might have sex with people because I don't know any other way to feel close. And I might use sex as a way not to feel. And this, again, overly responsible. I need to do something because no one else will do it. Also, curiosity. You know, again, if this wasn't encouraged as a child, or if I had to focus on other things, I feel very stupid saying to someone, look, I'm sorry, you know, I don't understand this. Can you just explain it again? And ACA has helped me so much with that. It's helped me so much during these reparenting, these wounded inner children. And I expect myself to be brilliant at something without giving myself a chance and saying, look, Beryl, to the self, it's okay, you can take your time, we can learn, you can get it wrong, and I'm going to be supporting you. So I think 37, 23. I think I've got 2 minutes left. So 2 minutes. Okay, thanks, Sophie. So we'll just do this last experiential exercise. So again, just take a few breaths. Feel the abdomen and your ribs expanding. So now, exhale. I want you just to go back to that safe place. I want you to go there, and I want you to see this young inner child, about 3 to 6. You know, maybe he's feeling frightened, maybe he doesn't trust anybody, maybe he doesn't want you anywhere near him. And you have to tell him, look, my darling, we survived. I'm proof that we survived. It wasn't your fault, and I'm going to be here for you. And we've got the loving higher power, and I'm going to be here, and I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to help you with those feelings. I'm going to help you play, have fun, whatever you need to do, set boundaries. Another things I can say are, all your feelings are okay here. You can be powerful and ask for help at the same time. You can try out as many ways as you like of how you can be powerful. You can be adventurous, and you can go and look at the world around you, and you can find out about others, and that's okay. And then I just want you to just spend a bit of time with your toddler self. Maybe he might be speaking to you. And just reassure him that you're going to help him get everything that he was supposed to get. And you're so sorry about his pain and his sadness. You're going to help him grieve. You're going to help him become whole and integrated. I just want you to breathe in. And again. Just
time, Beryl.
Thanks. When you're ready, you just open your eyes and come back into the room. And that's the end of my workshop. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Beryl. We're now going to open up sharing until 12:25, so we should be able to get about 4 or 5 shares. You will have 2 minutes to either share or ask questions. And I will be giving you a warning at 1:45 and at time. To put yourselves forward, please enter the chat function of Zoom and press the raise hand feature. So if you want to share, press the raise hand feature. Now, crosstalk rules will still need to be respected. That's a very important part of this. You may share general identification with what you've heard from our speakers, but you must not cross share. So just to clarify for everybody, because this is very important, and I will interrupt if not, it's okay to say, thank you, I identified with your share, and then go on to tell your story, but it's not okay to use the contents of what either of our speakers have said and use those contents within your share or to compare it to your share. If crosstalk is not respected, the secretary may interrupt your share to re-explain these rules, and the speakers may also request for this to be done. Just to let you know it again, you'll have a warning at 15 seconds to and at time. If you go over that, you will be muted. So sharing is now open if people would like to raise their hands.
Yes, we can start with Alexandra E.
Hi, my name is Alexandra, and thank you. When I was an infant, now I just wanted to be held in the arms close. And I realize the shame I've been carrying for just wanting to be close and feel physical closeness. And how I shame myself because I've been so alone all my life, even though it's slowly changing. I'm just so thankful for that deep insight. Thank you, both speakers. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I love where we're at now. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'd just also like to note that if people do want to ask questions of the speakers, that's also allowed.
Okay, next is Daniel C.
Hi, Daniel.
Hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. So I'm Daniel, I'm an adult child. I'm calling in from Amsterdam in Holland. I would like to thank both speakers and for the shares. I can relate very much to the topic of shame in my life, and in my experience, it was also quite hard, quite challenging, quite difficult at times to identify shame. I grew up in an environment, a family where shame was so much not talked about, but was so much there, that getting into recovery and discovering what shame was about for me took me many years. And the latest discovery has been, because I believe that recovery is a process, so I'm still in recovery and I'm still becoming my own loving parent. And I've come to understand that I have felt a lot of shame in my life for my thoughts, even though I could identify that I was, as a child, people used to tell me, don't think like that, or you don't know what you're thinking, and all the feelings. So I never made that connection inside of me, in my body also, to realize that that was shameful, and how ashamed I felt and have felt about my thoughts. So I'm not even talking about my action, but my thoughts. Realizing and then blaming myself for having certain thoughts, and then adapting my behavior in order to be compliant, in order not to follow those thoughts. And as a result, I have abandoned myself over and over again.
15 seconds, Daniel.
Thank you, I hear you. So I'm grateful for the process I'm in, and that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for allowing me to share, and thanks.
Thank you, Daniel. And thank you. It's good. Yeah.
The next is John P.
Hi, John P.
1 second.
Hello.
Hi, John.
Hi, I had to unmute myself, sorry. Thank you both. And I was wondering, Beryl, it was good to see you. I've heard you on the phone lines. I think it's that Beryl. Thank you. Way back. But anyway, the main thing was Pat didn't seem to get to finish. And I think it would be great if he could finish and post it with this on the WSO website. That's all. Thank you both very, very much. And I love the Philip Larkin poem. So thank you guys, both of you.
Thank you, John. We have time for 2 more shares.
The next is Christina.
Thank you. This is Christine from Germany. I just wanted to say hello to Beryl. We met 10 years ago, I think, on the American Bridge, telephone bridge. And I was so excited to read your name in the schedule of the webinars here for this convention. And I don't know if you remember me, we had a couple of telephone calls about religious abuse. And it gives me a sense of continuity to meet people again that have been in ACA for a long time. And thank you for your presentation, Christine from Germany.
Yes, thanks, Christine. Yeah. Just thank my family. That's where I learned everything about ACA, was with the people. So I just want to thank you guys. Thank you.
The next is Moshe Barnes.
Yes.
Hi, Moshe.
Hi, I'm Moshe from Israel. Thank you very much for this panel and all the conference. What I heard today during my own process is the first time I found out something that happened when I was 2 or 3 years old. I grew up in an orphanage on a kibbutz. My parents also lived there, but we were in a how do you say it, a children's home. And it seems that from when I was about a year old or a year and a half, I started going out of my crib and walking towards my parents' house or room. And sometimes I would be someone would see me in the middle of the night and bring me back. Sometimes I used to arrive there. And what I found out now is actually what I was doing. I was trying to correct a wrong relationship with my mother. Just abandoning there in the children's home was very, very troublesome, fearful, and many other things. And now I understand that what I was trying to do by walking to my parents once and again and again and again was actually to repair this wrong relationship. And it seems that something of that has been is carrying on also today. I feel the whole world is like a family which is dysfunctional.
15 seconds.
Okay. And I would like to, I feel a need to change the world, or to change the WHO and the health office in Israel.
That's time.
So that they become dysfunctional. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much, Moshe, and thank you to everybody who attended the meeting today. Sharing time is now over, and it's time for the 7th tradition. The 7th tradition states that every ACA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. We ask that you consider making a 7th tradition contribution or purchase an MP3 at shop.adultchildren.org. Thank you, everyone. I've asked Irma to read the promises. Irma may still be on mute, so we'll just wait for her to come off mute. Irma, I think you're now live.
Hi. Yes, I am. Thank you. Okay, just give me a second. My name is Irma. I'm adult child of alcoholic. The ACA promises. 1. We will discover our real identities by loving and accepting ourselves. 2. Our self-esteem will increase as we give ourselves approval on a daily basis. 3. Fear of authority figures and the need to people please will leave us. 4. Our ability to share intimacy will grow inside us. 5. As we face our abandonment issues, we will be attracted by strength and become more tolerant of weaknesses. 6. We will enjoy feeling stable, peaceful, and financially secure. 7. We will learn how to play and have fun in our lives. 8. We will choose to love people who can love and be responsible for themselves. 9. Healthy boundaries and limits will become easier for us to set. 10. Fears of failure and success will leave us as we intuitively make healthier choices. 11. With help from our ACA support group, we will slowly release our dysfunctional behaviors. 12. Gradually, with our higher power's help, we will learn to expect the best and get it. Thank you.
Thank you, Irma. Thank you to everybody that shared today and was of service to make this Global ACA World Convention come together. Please check the acawso.org website for information about these meetings' MP3 recordings. We're now going to close with a serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the one I can, and the wisdom
to know that one is me.
Know that one is me.
And that is a wrap. 3 minutes early. Talk about ACAs being prompt and on time. Thank you, everybody. And hope to see you all again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Pat.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank all the panelists for being visible to me. Very helpful.
Thank you to the
Yeah.
thank you to you from the UK Fellowship.